In the heart of Abuja, Nigeria's bustling capital, a frail-looking man stood in the middle of an upscale restaurant, clutching a crumpled 500 naira note. His hands trembled, and his patched jacket hung loosely on his frame. The chatter of diners paused as eyes turned to him. A waitress named Kioma, her face warm with compassion, stepped forward with a steaming plate of pounded yam and a goosey stew, paired with a chilled bottle of water. "Sir," she said gently, "this isn't scraps. You deserve a proper meal." The man's eyes glistened, his breath catching. For a moment, he was speechless. The room froze. Diners gawked, phones recorded, and the restaurant manager, Madame Ngozi, scowled from behind the counter. Then, the man tugged at his scruffy beard. It came off in his hand. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the fake beard hit the polished floor, revealing a face that made Kioma's jaw drop. How did it come to this? That morning, in a sleek penthouse overlooking Abuja's skyline, Daniel Okoye, one of Nigeria's wealthiest tech moguls, stared into a mirror. Known for his sharp suits and commanding presence, today he sought something else. Truth. "I want to see who has a heart," he murmured. From a leather case, he pulled out a disguise, a worn shirt, a matted wig, and a fake beard. Smudging dirt on his cheeks, he transformed into a man who looked like he'd slept on the streets. In the mirror, Daniel Okoye vanished, replaced by a stranger. He nodded. No chauffeurs, no VIP treatment, just me. He left his mansion alone, heading for a restaurant where he was usually greeted with fanfare. At Saffron Bistro, Daniel was a regular, always ushered to a reserved table with a view of the city. Today, as he pushed open the glass door, no one noticed. The air smelled of spicy stew and grilled suya. Diners laughed over clinking glasses, but heads turned as he shuffled in. A woman in a sleek dress pulled her purse closer. A man in a tailored agbada muttered, "Not near my table." Two teenagers at a corner booth snickered, filming him. "Look at his shoes," one whispered. Madame Ngozi, the manager, her lips painted crimson, barked from the counter, "Move to the side. Don't bother my guests." Daniel shuffled to a corner, his heart heavy not from the insults, but from what they revealed. He wasn't here to judge. He was here to learn. A waiter sneered as he passed. Another hissed under his breath. Daniel steadied himself, remembering his plan. Stepping forward, he rasped, "Please, I haven't eaten in days. Here's 500 naira. Just give me scraps. Anything." Laughter erupted. 500 naira, a man hooted. "That can't buy a spoon here." Madame Ngozi smirked. "We don't do scraps. Try the gutter outside." The room roared, phones flashing, all eyes mocking, except one pair. Kioma, in her crisp black and white uniform, stood still. Her gaze was soft, like moonlight on a quiet night. She studied the crumpled note, then the man's weary face. "Sir," she said, "wait here." Turning to the kitchen, she called, "1 plate of pounded yam and a goosey takeaway, and a bottle of water, please." A waiter scoffed. "For him?" "Yes," Kioma replied, unflinching. "Hurry." Madame Ngozi's eyes narrowed. "Kioma, are you mad? He has 500 naira. That meal costs thousands." "This isn't a soup kitchen." Kioma's voice was steady. "I know, ma. Deduct it from my pay." The room hushed. A woman coughed. "She's new," someone muttered, but Kioma had been there a year, known for her quiet kindness. Madame Ngozi waved dismissively. "Fine, but you'll pay for this nonsense." Minutes later, Kioma returned with a warm takeaway pack, the rich aroma of a goosey filling the air, and a cold bottle of water. She faced the man. "Sir, keep your money. This is yours, paid for." Daniel's world tilted. The laughter, the lights, the clatter of plates all faded. Her kindness struck him like a sudden rain. He'd expected indifference, maybe pity, but this was something else. Courage. He took the food, hands shaking. "Thank you," he whispered. Kioma smiled faintly. "Eat well, sir." As she turned, he called, "Wait." Her eyes met his. Daniel's fingers found the edge of his beard. He pulled. The wig slid off, revealing neatly cropped hair. The tattered shirt came off, exposing a tailored blazer. Gasps exploded. "Is that?" Daniel Okoye. Kioma's hand flew to her mouth. "Sir, you're the tech billionaire." Daniel smiled, calm but firm. "Yes." The door swung open, and 2 security guards entered, scanning the room. The laughter died. Madame Ngozi's smirk vanished. Daniel raised a hand. "No trouble. Stand down." The guard stepped back. Turning to the crowd, he said, "I didn't come to punish anyone. I came to find kindness. I wanted to know if anyone would help a man who seemed to have nothing. His gaze settled on Kioma, and someone did. Heads bowed. The teenagers hid their phones. Madame Ngozi fidgeted, her hands twisting. Sir, it's fine, Daniel cut in, his voice even. But don't belittle people. Not here, not ever. He faced Kioma. Your name? Kioma, sir. Kioma, you said I deserved a real meal, not scraps. You were right. She swallowed, eyes bright. I just did what felt right. Kioma's breath hitched. Resign, Daniel said softly. Madame Ngozi gasped. Sir, please. Daniel silenced her with a look, then turned back to Kioma. Resign today. Kioma's pulse raced. Sir, I don't understand. You will. He nodded to his guards. Car. The crowd watched, stunned, as Daniel addressed them. Treat people well, always. To Madame Ngozi he added, change this place. Start now. Then to Kioma, come with me. Her hands shook as she unclipped her name tag, placing it on the counter. Madame Ngozi stared, speechless. Kioma grabbed her small purse and followed Daniel. Phones rose, but no one laughed. A guard opened the door of a sleek SUV. Kioma hesitated. Will I be safe? Daniel nodded. With me? Yes. She stepped inside, and the car glided into Abuja's vibrant streets, leaving the restaurant buzzing with whispers. The SUV cut through Abuja's traffic, its dark windows shielding Kioma from curious eyes. She sat rigidly, clutching her purse, her mind reeling. Hours ago, she was dodging Madame Ngozi's sharp tongue. Now, she was beside a billionaire who'd disguised himself to test kindness. Daniel glanced at her. You're nervous, Kioma nodded. Sir, why me? He smiled faintly. Because you chose compassion when others chose cruelty. That's rare. Her throat tightened. She thought of her childhood in a cramped village, losing her father to illness, her mother selling a kara to fund her schooling. She'd fought for every step, always overlooked for lacking connections. Now, she was here, but doubt lingered. Was this real? The SUV pulled into a gated estate, where a sprawling mansion gleamed under floodlights. Kioma's breath caught. The compound boasted manicured lawns and a fountain that sparkled like diamonds. The car stopped, and a guard opened her door. Her worn shoes felt out of place on the marble steps. Inside, the mansion dazzled chandeliers cast golden light, and artworks lined the walls. A maid bowed. Welcome, sir, to Kioma. She added, This way, ma, Daniel instructed. Prepare the guest suite. Ensure she's comfortable. Kioma's heart skipped. A suite. She'd shared a single room with cousins for years. The maid led her to a room with a plush bed, a desk, and a view of the estate's gardens. Dinner in an hour, the maid said before leaving. Kioma sat, whispering, God, is this happening? That evening, Daniel summoned her to his study, a warm space filled with books and a glowing lamp. Kioma, there's something you should know. She sat, nervous. 4 years ago, I lost my sister in a car accident. She was my only family. Since then, I've felt hollow. Despite all this, his voice wavered. I vowed to find people who make the world better, because kindness is what keeps us human. Kioma's eyes softened. I'm sorry, sir, he nodded. Don't be. Just know why I did this. Kioma, I want to build something for you, a restaurant, the finest in Abuja, a testament to kindness. Her jaw dropped. Sir, for me, yes, he said firmly, but I need your vision. Work with my team. Dream big. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Sir, I'm not worthy. Daniel's gaze was unwavering. You are, and you'll see why. The next morning, Kioma woke to sunlight streaming through her window. A maid brought breakfast pancakes, fruit, and tea. She ate, still in disbelief. Later, in the study, Daniel asked, What's your dream restaurant? Kioma hesitated. No one had ever cared about her dreams. Sir, I don't know if they matter. They do, Daniel insisted. Speak. Slowly she began. A place that feels like family. Warm lights, wooden tables, music that soothes. Food that tastes like home-pounded yam, vegetable stew. Affordable but delicious. A corner for kids to play. And the name, she paused. Hope Kitchen. Because hope is what kindness gives. Daniel's face lit up. Hope Kitchen. It's perfect. Kioma blushed. I said too much. No, he replied. You gave it a heart. Weeks became months. Daniel introduced Kioma to his project manager, architect Musa, and his team. Initially skeptical, they soon respected her ideas after Daniel's firm endorsement. Kioma immersed herself in the project, choosing colors, tasting dishes, and designing a welcoming space. At night, fear crept in. Could she sustain this? She prayed, God, don't let this fade. One evening, on the mansion's balcony, Daniel asked, do you believe in fate? Kioma shrugged. Life's been too tough to think fate cares. He smiled. I thought so too, after my sister, but meeting you, Kioma, makes me wonder. Maybe fate gives us who we need. Her cheeks warmed, and a quiet bond grew. 5 months later, Hope Kitchen stood ready, its earthy tones and open layout, drawing crowds. On opening day, Abuja buzzed with excitement. Politicians, students, and families filled the tables. Kioma, in a flowing anchor dress, took the stage, her voice trembling. Good afternoon, she began, the microphone amplifying her words. I was a waitress with no family, no wealth. I lost my father young and thought life had no place for me. But my mother said, kindness is a seed that grows. One day, I served a man I thought was homeless. I gave him my earnings because he deserved dignity. That man was Daniel Okoye, and he gave me this. The crowd gasped, then cheered. Hope Kitchen is here because kindness matters, Kioma finished, tears streaming. Applause thundered. That night, alone at the restaurant's entrance, Kioma stared at the glowing sign. Mama, I hope you're proud. Daniel joined her. What's next, Kioma? She frowned. Next, his eyes held hers. This is just the start. His phone buzzed, his expression darkening. Sir, Kioma asked. A complication, he muttered, but the night's joy held firm. Months later, Daniel and Kioma's bond deepened. He visited Hope Kitchen daily, and their drives home became moments of laughter and trust. One night, on the balcony, he confessed, Kioma, you've brought light to my life. I know I'm scarred, but I believe fate chose you for me. Tears welled in her eyes. Daniel, I'm just a village girl. He took her hand. You're my hope. 2 years later, under the same stars, he proposed. Marry me, Kioma. Let's build a life together. Sobbing, she said, yes. Kioma's speech moved the crowd, from a waitress to a wife. Kindness wrote my story. A year later, in a quiet hospital room, Kioma held her newborn son, named Chidi, after her father. Daniel kissed her forehead. Destiny didn't forget you, he said. Kioma smiled, cradling their child. It started with kindness. The hospital room in Abuja was bathed in soft morning light, the air filled with the gentle coos of baby Chidi cradled in Kioma's arms. Her face, though tired, glowed with a joy she'd never known. Daniel stood beside her, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder, his eyes tracing the tiny features of their son. Chidi, he whispered, repeating the name like a prayer. Our light. Kioma leaned into him, her heart full. Mama would have loved him, she said, her voice thick with emotion. For a moment, they stood in silence, the weight of their journey from a single act of kindness in a restaurant to this new life settling around them like a warm embrace. But life, as Kioma had learned, rarely stayed still. The months that followed were a whirlwind. Hope Kitchen thrived, its reputation spreading beyond Abuja, to Lagos, Port Harcourt, and even international blogs that hailed it as Nigeria's soulful gem. Kioma, now a mother and wife, balanced her roles with a grace that surprised even herself. She'd wake at dawn to nurse Chidi, then head to the restaurant to oversee operations, greeting customers with the same warmth that had once caught Daniel's eye. Daniel, meanwhile, poured his energy into mentoring Kioma, teaching her the intricacies of business while managing his tech empire. Their evenings were spent together in the mansion, Chidi's laughter filling the halls, a sound that healed old wounds. Yet, beneath the surface, new challenges loomed. One evening, as the Abuja skyline glittered beyond the mansion's balcony, Daniel's phone buzzed again, its sharp tone cutting through their quiet moment. Kioma, rocking Chidi in her arms, noticed the flicker of tension in Daniel's jaw. Another complication, she asked, her voice soft but probing. Daniel hesitated, then nodded. A rival company. They're spreading rumors about my latest project, trying to sabotage a deal. The next morning, Kioma arrived at Hope Kitchen to find an unexpected visitor waiting at the entrance. Madame Ngozi, her former boss, stood there, her lace gown impeccable but her expression uneasy. Kioma's stomach tightened. She hadn't seen Madame Ngozi since the wedding, where the older woman's forced smile had barely masked her envy. Good morning, Ma, Kioma said, her tone polite but guarded. Madame Ngozi's lips twitched into a smile that felt rehearsed. Kioma, my dear, I came to see this famous place for myself, and to talk. Kioma gestured to a table inside, her instincts on edge. The restaurant was still quiet, the morning staff setting up for the lunch rush. Over cups of tea, Madame Ngozi's words came slowly, each one measured. She waved a hand at the vibrant dining area, its walls adorned with local art. I underestimated you. Kioma tilted her head, unsure if this was an apology or something else. People will always talk, Ma. I don't live for their words. Madame Ngozi's smile faltered, but she rose, smoothing her gown. Think about it, dear. The world isn't as kind as you believe. That evening, Kioma shared the encounter with Daniel as they sat in the mansion's study. Chidi slept in a crib nearby, his tiny chest rising and falling. Daniel's face darkened. She's trying to poach you to weaken us. Ngozi's connected to my rival, Emeka Nwosu. He's the one spreading the rumors. Kioma's eyes widened. Emeka Nwosu, the real estate tycoon. Daniel nodded. He's been after my contracts for years. Now he's using Ngozi to get to you, to destabilize Hope Kitchen and my reputation. Kioma's heart sank. She'd faced hardship before, but this felt different, a calculated threat to the life she'd built. Over the next weeks, the pressure mounted. Negative articles surfaced online, questioning Daniel's business practices and hinting that Hope Kitchen was a publicity stunt. Customers dwindled slightly, some swayed by the rumors. Kioma noticed the staff whispering, their confidence shaken. One night, as she locked up the restaurant, a man lingered outside, his face half hidden in the shadows. "You're Kioma, right?" he said, his voice low. "Be careful, not everyone loves your story." Before she could respond, he vanished into the night. Fear gripped her, not for herself, but for Chidi and Daniel. At home, Kioma found Daniel pacing the living room, his phone pressed to his ear. "No, I won't settle," he snapped before hanging up. Seeing her, he softened, but his eyes were tired. "Emeka's pushing harder," he admitted. "He's bribing officials to delay my project permits." Kioma took his hands, her voice steady despite her own unease. "Daniel, we didn't come this far to break. Hope Kitchen started with kindness. That's our strength." He looked at her, the fire in her eyes reigniting his own. "You're right," he said. "We fight back not with their games, but with who we are." The next day, Kioma called a staff meeting at Hope Kitchen. The team gathered, their faces a mix of worry and loyalty. "You've heard the rumors," she began, standing tall. "They want us to fail, to doubt ourselves. But this restaurant isn't just a business. It's a promise to our customers, to each other, to kindness. We won't let lies steal that." The staff cheered, their spirits lifted. Word spread, and soon, customers returned, drawn by the restaurant's renewed purpose. Daniel, meanwhile, tackled Emeka's schemes head-on. He met with journalists, sharing his vision for ethical business and exposing Emeka's underhanded tactics. He invited community leaders to Hope Kitchen, letting Kioma's warmth and the restaurant's mission speak for themselves. Slowly, the tide turned. Articles praising Hope Kitchen's community work began to drown out the rumors. Emeka's influence waned as his allies distanced themselves, unwilling to be tied to his failing campaign. One evening, as the restaurant buzzed with diners, Kioma noticed a familiar figure at a corner table, Madame Ngozi. She approached, her heart steady. "Welcome, Ma," she said, offering a menu. Madame Ngozi's eyes were softer now, stripped of their earlier sharpness. "Kioma," she said quietly, "I was wrong. I thought I could outsmart you, but you've built something real. I'm closing my new restaurant. It never had this." She gestured to the lively room, where families laughed and waiters moved with pride. Kioma nodded, her voice gentle. "There's room for everyone, Ma. Just build with heart." Madame Ngozi managed a small smile, a rare moment of humility. That night, on the mansion's balcony, Daniel pulled Kioma close as Chidi slept inside. The city sparkled below, its chaos softened by their shared silence. "You were my strength," Daniel said, his voice low. "When I wanted to fight dirty, you reminded me who we are." Kioma leaned against him, her fears quieted. "And you gave me a chance to be more than a waitress. We're stronger together." He kissed her forehead, the weight of their trials lifting. 2 years later, Hope Kitchen expanded to Lagos, its second location opening to fanfare. Kioma, now a celebrated entrepreneur, spoke at the event, Chidi toddling at her side. "Kindness built this," she told the crowd, her voice clear and confident. "And kindness will carry us forward." Daniel watched, his heart full. knowing their story born from a single meal given without expectation was far from over. In a quiet moment after the opening, Kioma stood outside the new restaurant, the sign glowing above, Hope Kitchen. She whispered, "Mama, we're still growing." Daniel joined her, slipping an arm around her waist. "What's next?" he asked, his eyes warm with possibility. Kioma smiled, her gaze on the horizon. More hope, more kindness, more us. And as Abuja's lights danced around them, they knew the best was yet to come. The Lagos branch of Hope Kitchen glowed under the evening sky, its warm light spilling onto the bustling street. Inside, the aroma of jollof rice and sizzling suya wrapped around diners like a hug, while laughter and music filled the air. Kioma stood at the entrance, her eyes tracing the golden sign above, Hope Kitchen. At her side, little Chidi clung to her hand, his curious eyes darting to the crowd. The opening had been a triumph, with Lagos embracing the restaurant as warmly as Abuja had. Daniel joined her, his smile proud but tinged with the quiet intensity she'd come to recognize. "You've done it again," he said, ruffling Chidi's hair. Kioma's heart swelled, but her reply was soft. "We did it, Daniel, together." Yet, as the weeks unfolded, the glow of success brought new shadows. Hope Kitchen's rise had made Kioma a public figure. Her story of kindness turned empire splashed across newspapers and social media. Invitations poured in talk shows, charity galas, even a university lecture. At first, she embraced them, sharing her journey with humility. But the spotlight came with scrutiny. Online, critics questioned her rapid rise. "She's just a waitress who married money." One blog sneered. Others whispered that Daniel's wealth, not her talent, fueled Hope Kitchen's success. The words stung, reawakening Kioma's old fears of being seen as unworthy. At home, Daniel noticed her growing unease. One night, as they sat in the mansion's living room, Chidi asleep upstairs, he set aside his tablet and took her hand. "You're quiet lately," he said, his voice gentle. Kioma sighed, her fingers tracing the edge of her Ankara skirt. "The world's watching. Daniel, they think I'm a fraud, that I don't deserve this." She gestured to the opulent room, then to her heart. "I'm still the girl who sold Akara to survive. What if they're right?" Daniel's gaze was steady. "They're not. You built Hope Kitchen's soul. No one can take that from you." His words anchored her, but doubt lingered like a stubborn fog. The next challenge came unexpectedly. One morning, as Kioma arrived at the Abuja branch, she found architect Musa, the project manager who'd helped build both restaurants, waiting in her office. His face was grim. "Kioma, we have a problem," he said, sliding a tablet toward her. The screen showed a news headline, "Hope Kitchen accused of food safety violations." Her heart sank. The article claimed that the Lagos branch had served contaminated meals, citing anonymous complaints. "It's not true," Kioma said, her voice shaking. "We check every ingredient, every process." Musa nodded. "I know, but the damage is done. Customers are canceling reservations." Kioma's mind raced. She thought of Emeka Nuosu, Daniel's rival, whose earlier schemes had nearly derailed them. "Is this Emeka again?" she asked. Musa shrugged. "No proof, but the timing's suspicious. He's been quiet since his last move failed, but he's not one to give up." Kioma's hands clenched. Hope Kitchen wasn't just a business, it was her legacy, a testament to her mother's belief in kindness. She couldn't let it crumble. "We fight this," she said, her voice firm, not with anger, but with truth. That evening, she and Daniel devised a plan. First, they invited health inspectors to both branches, offering full transparency. The inspections found no violations, and Kioma released the results publicly, along with a video tour of the kitchen's rigorous standards. Next, she doubled down on community outreach, hosting a week of free cooking classes at Hope Kitchen, teaching families to make affordable, healthy meals. "Let them see who we are," she told her staff. "Not what lies say." The response was overwhelming. Families flocked to the classes, and social media buzzed with praise. The accusations faded, but the experience left Kioma wary. Success, she realized, was a fragile thing. Amid the crisis, a new opportunity emerged. One afternoon, a woman named Dr. Aisha Bello visited Hope Kitchen, a renowned philanthropist and founder of a children's education fund. She'd followed Kioma's story. Over lunch, Aisha's eyes sparkled with purpose. "Kioma, your restaurant inspires people. I want to partner with you on a project, a network of community kitchens across Nigeria, serving free meals to children in underserved areas. You'd lead it. Bring your vision to places that need hope most." Chioma's breath caught. The idea was thrilling, but daunting. She'd never worked on such a scale. "Why me?" she asked. Aisha smiled. "Because you know what hunger feels like. You'll make it personal that night." Chioma shared the proposal with Daniel as they walked the mansion's garden, Chidi toddling ahead, chasing fireflies. "It's a chance to do more," she said, her voice alive with possibility. "But it's huge. I'd need to travel, train teams, leave Hope Kitchen in others' hands sometimes." Daniel nodded, his expression thoughtful. "It's what you were born for, Chioma. But it won't be easy. Aisha's projects attract attention, good and bad." Chioma's mind flashed to the recent accusations. The shadowy figure outside the restaurant. "I'm scared," she admitted. "But I want to try." Daniel pulled her close. "Then we'll make it work. You're not alone." The community kitchen project launched 6 months later, with Chioma at its helm. She named it Seeds of Hope, a nod to her mother's wisdom about kindness as a seed that grows. The first kitchen opened in a rural community outside Kano. Its bright walls and bustling stoves, a beacon for children who'd known too little care. Chioma poured her heart into it, training local cooks and designing menus that were nutritious yet familiar. Moi moi, vegetable stew, rice. Families gathered, their gratitude humbling her. But the project wasn't without obstacles. Funding shortages slowed progress, and in some areas, local leaders demanded bribes to allow operations. Chioma refused, her integrity unwavering, but it meant delays. One evening, as she returned to Abuja after a trip to Kano, Chioma found Daniel waiting at the airport, his face tense. "Emeka's at it again," he said, guiding her to the SUV. "He's lobbying to block our permits for the next kitchen, claiming we're cutting corners." Chioma's shoulders sagged. Why won't he stop? Daniel's jaw tightened. "Because we're winning, and he can't stand it. But I've got evidence of his bribes this time. I'm taking it to the authorities." Chioma touched his arm. "Be careful, Daniel. He's dangerous." He nodded, but his eyes held a fire she hadn't seen since their early battles. The confrontation came sooner than expected. At a high-profile business summit in Lagos, Daniel publicly exposed Emeka's corruption, presenting documents that linked him to illegal deals. The room buzzed with shock, and Emeka's face twisted with rage. "You'll regret this, Okoye," he spat before storming out. That night, as Chioma and Daniel returned to their hotel, a car tailed them, its headlights too close. Daniel's driver sped up, losing the pursuer, but Chioma's heart pounded. "This has to end," she whispered. Daniel squeezed her hand. "It will. I promise." The tide turned when Emeka's allies, fearing exposure, withdrew support. His empire began to crumble, and within months, he faced legal charges. The victory was bittersweet. Chioma and Daniel had protected their work, but the constant threats had taken a toll. One quiet evening, as they sat on the mansion's balcony, Chidi playing nearby, Chioma voiced a new dream. "I want to teach kindness, Daniel, not just through food, but in schools, communities. A program to show young people that compassion is strength." Daniel's eyes lit up. "A kindness curriculum," he mused. "It's brilliant. Let's build it together." 2 years later, the Kindness Academy launched a nationwide initiative integrating empathy and service into school curriculums. Chioma trained teachers, sharing her story to inspire students. Seeds of Hope expanded to 10 communities, feeding thousands of children daily. Hope Kitchen remained a beloved landmark, its original Abuja branch, now a training ground for aspiring chefs from disadvantaged backgrounds. Chioma, once a village girl with no voice, became a symbol of possibility, her name spoken with reverence across Nigeria. On Chidi's 5th birthday, Chioma and Daniel hosted a celebration at the Abuja Hope Kitchen. The restaurant overflowed with friends, staff, and community members. Madame Ngozi, now a quiet supporter, attended, her once sharp demeanor softened by time. As Chioma cut the cake, Chidi giggling beside her, she took the microphone, her voice steady. "Years ago, I gave a meal to a man I thought had nothing. That act of kindness changed my life. Today, I stand here, wife, mother, dreamer, because one choice led to all this. Never underestimate what your heart can do." The crowd roared, tears in many eyes. Daniel wrapped an arm around her, his pride palpable. Later, as the party wound down, they stepped outside, The night air cooled against their skin. The Hope Kitchen sign glowed above, a beacon in the darkness. "What's next?" Daniel asked, his voice warm with the question that had become their ritual. Kioma looked at the stars, then at Chidi, asleep in her arms. "More seeds," she said softly. "More hope." Daniel kissed her temple, his heart at peace. Their story, born from a single act, stretched toward a future they'd build together, one kind choice at a time.